Hello everyone, welcome to channel Qtomation. In today's session we will see about iframes and how we can interact with elements which are present inside iframe. Let's understand what exactly is iframe. Iframe, or sometimes it is also called as frame. In web development, frame or we can say iframe are both used to divide the web page into separate sections, or we can call them as frames that can load different content independently. Frames are typically used to show multiple web pages within a single web page. So, if you see, sometimes whenever we open any website, we can see there are some different sections, independent sections, which are displaying different website content. For example, if you take this web page, this is one of the example web page. On this web page, there is, so this area, if you see, this area is basically, entire area is iframe. This iframe is displaying totally different web page content. Along with this iframe, there is one more iframe which is displaying some different content. It is showing you the Selenium website in this second iframe, whereas in this first iframe, it is showing you Playwright website content. So iframes are used to define and display different website content in one common website. So each frame can load different content independently. One more example is this web page. If you see this web page, there are 1, 2, 3 and total 4 iframes which are present. Every iframe is independent of each other. So if you see, inspect this element or inspect this web page, let me just highlight each iframe. So you will see some tag that is called as frame tag. So iframes, sometimes it can be iframe tag or sometimes it can be a frame tag. And for every frame, there is one source. So if you see, source means website. So if you copy this and open this link in new tab, let me just open this link in new tab. It is showing you entire different web page. So this entire web page is embedded inside this frame. So this is first frame. Similarly, if you see, there is some another frame which is present here, which is frame 2. If you see now, you can see this is the frame tag. So this is frame tag for second frame which is present. That is also having some source. Source means the link of that web page. So if I open this link in new tab, so this is the actual link of that iframe. It is again a separate web page which is embedded inside this iframe. So on single web page, there are multiple frames which are present. Every frame is independent of each other. And frame will have some source URL. Similarly on this website, how many frames are there? So if you see now, there are total 2 frames which are displayed mainly on this web page. So if you inspect this web page, on parent web page, there are 2 iframes here. So if I inspect this iframe, and if you see, there is one frame tag, iframe tag. So here we can see iframe tag. This iframe is having some identifier. Also there can be a name of that frame as well. And as usually, there is source URL. So if you open this URL in new tab, it is again display you actual web page which is embedded inside that iframe. So this is a different website. This is a different web page which is present in this iframe. So this is one iframe. Along with that, there is another iframe which is present on the same page. So this iframe again we can inspect it. So when you inspect this iframe, if you see, again there is iframe tag. And that is also having some different source URL. It is having name also and ID also. So these are called as an iframe. So in web development, a frame or iframe are used to divide the web page into separate sections, which we can call them as a frames, and that frames can load differently. They can load the content independently, and frames are typically used to show multiple web pages within a single web page. So in this example also, if you see, there are multiple iframes are displayed in the single web page. So every iframe is a different website, but they are displayed in one common web page, which is this one. So in this common web page, there are multiple sections which are divided by frames. In some web pages, it can be a frame, or sometimes it can be a iframe tag also. And this is the high level diagram. So there are one parent page. So whenever we open this web page, not this one, this is called as a parent page. And inside this parent page, there are multiple frames. For example, there can be iframe 1, iframe 2, iframe 3, etc. And whenever we want to interact with elements which are present inside the frame or iframe, we cannot directly interact with those. So for example, if you see this web page, every iframe is having some input field. Now if I want to enter some text in this input field, I cannot directly access this web element since it is present inside this frame. So in test automation, we have to first switch to that frame, and after switching to that frame, we can interact with elements which are present in those specific frames. So we cannot directly interact with the elements which are present inside the frame. We have to switch to that frame, and after switching to that frame, we can interact with elements inside it as it would similar to normal elements. In Playwright, there are two approaches by which we can interact with elements which are present inside iframe. So what I will do, I am just closing this. Let me just use one example only. So this is the web page which is containing two main iframes. First iframe is loading the content from Playwright website. If you see, this is again another iframe, and second iframe is loading the content of selenium.dev website. So there are these two iframes, and if I want to interact with elements which are present inside this iframe, I have to use two approach. We can use any one of the approach. I will show you both the approach by which we can interact with elements present inside the iframe. So my use case is, I will load this web page. So I will just load this web page, and once you reach on this web page, now I want to click on this search button. So this search button is present inside the first iframe. So we cannot directly interact with this search element because it is present inside this iframe. So what is my use case is, after loading this web page, I want to click on this search button. So if you see, once you click on this search button, it is showing you search pop-up. So that is the first interaction I want to do. After this interaction, what I want to do, in this second iframe, I want to click on this documentation link. Once you click on this documentation link, it will show you this web page. It will show you documentation of Selenium. Again, this documentation link is present inside second iframe. So we cannot directly interact with this documentation. So these are the two actions which I want to do via automation script. But for that, let's see how we can handle these iframes. It is very easy. Let me go to PyCharm, not PyCharm but Visual Studio Code. In the Visual Studio Code, I have created a new file. I have created one iframes underscore demo dot spec.js file. Inside this file, I am importing test and expect function from @playwright test module. Then we have created one test block. I have given title as iframe handling approach 1. So I will just show you first approach. Then we have used anonymous function in which we are passing page fixture. Async is the keyword which we have to use. And then we are opening this web page. This is the same web page which is opened here. Let me just copy this URL. So we want to open this web page. So I am just copying that here. So it will launch and open this web page. After opening this web page, what is the next action we want to do? So there are two approaches by which we can interact with elements which are present inside the iframe. So let me show you first approach by using frame locator. So if you see the official documentation, let me just show you official documentation for Playwright as well. So this is one of the approach. It is by using frame locator. So in frame locator, we have to define first capture the frame. So let me just show you. So we can use frame locator. Frame locator approach is very simple, faster, and it provides better readability. It allows direct interaction with elements inside an iframe without switching to frame explicitly. Frame locator automatically waits for the frame to be available. So let me just show you practically. So once you load this web page, what I want to do, I want to click on this search button. So first we have to locate this iframe. So first step is we have to locate this iframe by using page locator. By using page locator, we have to locate this iframe. So what I will do, I will go to my code. I'm going to define one frame locator. You can give any name. I'm just giving it as a frame1. So frame1 equals to page dot frame locator. So this function we have to use. And inside this page dot frame locator, we have to pass locator of that iframe. So as I shown you earlier, for every iframe, we can create some locator. So first we have to identify the locator of this iframe. So I want to first identify the locator of this iframe. So let me just inspect it. Let me just inspect and find out locator for the first iframe. So if you see now, the first iframe is present here. This iframe is having some attributes like ID, name, etc. We can use any attribute. So I will just use ID since it is present. What is the ID? iframe -1. So if you are using ID, we can directly use with hash. So this will highlight this entire iframe. So this is highlighting this entire iframe. So let's use this identifier of this first iframe. And we have to pass that identifier of iframe in this page.frame locator. So what it will do, it will capture that iframe and it will store it in frame1. So frame1 is nothing but our first iframe. And now we can interact with the elements which are present inside that iframe by using frame1. So frame1 dot locator, which element now we want to interact? So we want to click on this search button, right? So inside this frame1, we want to click on this search button. So let's identify some locator for this search button. So if you see, for this locator, what we can use? We can use span, and this is a text which is present. So to click on this search button, I can create the XPath as well. So let me just create one simple XPath. Let me just create an XPath for this element. So 2 times / span tag. I can also use text method also. So let me just show you this first iframe in which we have to click on. Let me just minimize it. Yes, so this is our main web page inside which these iframes are open. and we want to click on this search button. So let me just one more time highlight this search button. So I can use span along with text. So I'm just creating one XPath span. Then we can use text method, comma, what is the text? Search is a text which is present. So if you see, text equals to search. So we have to put not the comma, but in XPath we have to put equals to search. So now if you see, it is totally highlighting multiple elements. So let me just write some unique XPath for this search button is. So now I want to click on this search button. So let's try to find some unique XPath. We can use class as well. So if you see, there is class also. So let me just use class also. Span. Inside this span I can use @class equal to the value of that class. Now again, this class is having multiple elements. So let me just check out this one more time. I'm just trying to find some unique XPath for this locator, for this search button. So if you see, this is span tag is present inside this one, or we can use this button also. So instead of that, I can just use button also. So if you see, this button is having this class and label equals to this one, type equals to button. So let me use button 2 times / button @class equals to this one. So let me put this here. Now it is highlighting again 3 elements, but we can use the first one. So if you see the first one, so this is the first one. So I'm just copying this XPath. Let's go to our code. Frame.locator. Inside this, I am passing this XPath. And this is first one we want to capture. So nth of 0 index. Nth of 0. And then we want to click on that. So it will launch the page. Then it will find out the iframe 1. And from that iframe 1, it will find out this locator with 0 index, that is the first element, and it will click on that element. So it should click on that element. Now I will just add some timeout. Let's say await page dot wait for timeout, because we want to see the output. So I'm just adding 4 seconds timeout, and now we can execute this script. So we can execute this script to see whether it is able to identify our iframe and whether it is clicking on that element or not. So npx playwright test iframes underscore demo dot spec dot js hyphen headed mode hyphen project equals to chromium. So now let's execute this test case. It should launch the web page. It should identify that iframe, and from the first iframe, it should click on that search button. It should perform these operations. If it is able to perform this operation, that means our iframe handling working correctly by using frame locator method. So now it will launch the browser. So it will launch the browser now. It is starting the test case. It is launching the browser. It is opening the URL. If you see, it has opened the web page, and you should click on that search button. If you see, it automatically clicked on that search button also, and then it is closing the browser. So our test case got passed. Now that is the first iframe handling which we have done. Now what is my next step is, after clicking on the search button, now I want to again click on this documentation from this second iframe. So from this Selenium web page which is present inside another iframe, I want to click on this documentation link. So again the same approach. So what I have to do is, I will just define one more iframe. Let's say one more constant I am defining. This time I am naming it as iframe2 equals to, we have to use page dot frame locator. In this what we have to pass? Identifier of second iframe. So let's try to find identifier of second iframe. So this is the second iframe which is showing content of Selenium website. So let me just highlight this second iframe. If you see, this is present inside. Let me just again highlight this second iframe. If you see, this is the iframe. It is also having some ID, that is iframe-2. I am just copying this identifier of that iframe, and again I will just pass that identifier in this frame locator so that our iframe2 is found. Now by using await frame2 dot locator, now we have to pass the element from that iframe with which we want to interact. So this is iframe2 dot locator. In this we can pass the locator. We have to pass the element with which we want to interact. So what is the element which we want to interact? So in this second iframe, if you see, so let me just show you one more time. So this is the first iframe. So if you see now, this is the first iframe, and now after that there is a second iframe. So this is the second iframe which is present. Now we want to find out this documentation page URL, documentation page element. So let me just highlight this documentation link. So it is present inside the span tag, and which is present inside this li tag, and in that li tag, if you see, there is an anchor tag. So what I want to do is, let's try to identify this documentation link. So let me try with span tag directly, Control F, 2 times forward slashes span, and let me try with text method equals to documentation. So it is highlighting 2 elements. So I want to click on the first one. So let's say I want to click on first element only. So that will come under nth index of 0. So let me go back to code. I will pass this XPath here and dot nth of 0 index, so that it will capture the first element, and it has to click on that one. So it will find out the iframe2. By this frame locator, we are passing the identifier. So ID need hash here. So it will identify this second iframe, and then with this iframe2 dot locator, in which we are passing that documentation XPath. Since there are 2 elements with the same XPath, we are passing the first one, that is nth 0 index, and it will click on that. Then we are waiting for 5 seconds. So let's me add 5000. Let's save this file, and now let's execute the test case one more time. So it will click on search button of first iframe and documentation link of second iframe. So those actions should be performed. So let's see how it executes. So it is launching the web page now. It is starting our test case. It is opening the web page. In first iframe, it will click on search button, so that pop-up will come. And in second iframe, it should click on documentation. If you see, it already clicked on documentation. That's why that documentation page URL was open. If you see, when you click on this documentation, this web page opens. Now instead of this documentation, I will pass some another one. So let's say I want to click on downloads. So when you click on downloads, what is the page? So downloads page get displayed. So let me try to find out the locator for this downloads. Again, instead here we can pass downloads instead of documentation in our XPath. Let's see how many elements. Again, it is highlighting single element only. So for downloads, it is highlighting single elements. So let me use this XPath this time. Let's go to our code. Let's pass that XPath here. And it is highlighting only single element. So we don't have to use the int index. We can directly use this one. So now if I execute this script one more time, what it will do, it will click on search button of the first iframe. Then it will click on downloads link in second iframe. So by default, after clicking on download, this download web page should be displayed. Initially when web page loads, it is not showing you the downloads page. In second iframe, let me just refresh this page. If you see, in second iframe, when we refresh the web page, it is having some different content. It is having home page. And when I click on this download, it will show you downloads page. So now let me execute this file and let's see again how our code handles both the iframes. In first iframe, it will click on search button, and in second iframe, it will click on downloads link. So it is launching the web page. It will start the test case now. So it is starting the test case. It will open the URL. It will click on the search button in the first iframe, and in second iframe it will click on downloads button. If you see, download also clicked and search button also clicked, and our test case is also passed. So this is how we can handle iframes and elements present inside those iframes. So this is the first approach by using frame locator. In frame locator, we have to pass identifier of the iframe. We can use any identifier. We can create XPath as well. If there is ID which is present, we can use ID also. If there is name which is present, we can use name as well. So we can pass any locator which should identify that iframe in frame locator. Now I will show you one more approach by using frames object. So let me just write another test block. So I will just skip the first one. And this is approach 2 now. Let's save this file. So I am just closing this one. So for what we have seen the approach 1 by using frame locator. And now we will see by using frame method also we can handle iframes. So in this frame method, it require getting the frame reference manually, and then we can perform the actions. And what do you mean by frame reference? So two things we can use for the frame reference. We can either use name attribute, and if name is not present, we can use URL also. So for every iframe, we have seen for every iframe there is URL. So we can pass either name of that iframe, or we can pass URL of that iframe. If anything is present, both of these, we can pass any of that inside this dot frame method. But we cannot pass any other locators. We have to just pass name or URL. So let me just show you practically. So let me again use the same web page. Inside this web page, I will perform the same action. What I want to do, I want to load this web page. Then I want to click on this search button. For that, we have to first identify this iframe. So let me just inspect this iframe. When you inspect this iframe, if you see in this iframe, there is identifier and name. So we can either use this name or we can simply use this URL as well. So I will just first show you how to use name. So I'm just copying this name. Inside this code, just focus on second method now. So first approach we have seen. Now we are seeing the second approach. So this command will launch the web page. After that, I have to define one iframe. Let's say frame1 equals to page dot. We have to use, previously we have used page dot frame locator, but this time you have to use page dot frame method. And when you use page dot frame method, inside curly bracket, we can either pass name or we can pass URL as well. So name or URL, we have to pass either name or URL. So what I will do, I will just pass name first. Inside this name, you have to pass the value. So this is the value for the first iframe. If you see, this is the name attribute of our first iframe. This is a name attribute of our first iframe. That's it. Once you pass this name attribute, what is the next step now? So we have identified the iframe. We have passed the frame reference here. We have passed the frame reference. After passing the frame reference, now we have to interact with this frame 1. I will simply use await frame1 dot locator. I have to just pass the locator of that search button, which I have already captured in our previous step. So this is a locator, frame dot locator, which we have to pass in this, and this is dot nth of 0 index, since there are 2 elements, and we have to click on that. So we can use the click method here. So it will identify the first iframe by its name, and then it will click on that search button. It will click on that search button in first iframe. And now we can similarly check for second iframe also. Frame 2, I am just defining frame 2 equals to page dot frame, and this time I will use URL. So for second iframe, what I want to do, so this is the first iframe, and for second iframe, if you see now, let me just close this. So this is the first iframe on which it will click on this search button, but in second iframe, this is the second iframe, we want to click on this downloads button. So initially we have to click on this downloads button. So for that, we have to first identify and find out either name or URL for this iframe. For this second iframe, we have to find out, if you see, there is name, which we have already used for previous scenario. Now there is URL as well. SRC tag is having some URL. So I have to just copy this URL. Let me just copy this. Let me just copy this URL. So we are this time using URL as a reference. So inside this page.frame, I am just using URL in curly bracket and value of URL which I am passing. So double quotes, let me remove. So this is the value of URL. And from this frame 2, we have to click on the same element which we have clicked previously. Frame 2 dot locator. I want to click on this downloads link. So I am just using the XPath of that downloads link. Frame 2 dot locator. In this, we are passing this XPath, and we have to click on that downloads link. So I am just simply using click command, and then I have added wait for timeout. So this was the approach 1, and this is approach 2. Approach 1 is by using frame locator. In this, we can pass any locator to locate that frame. But in page.frame method, we can either pass name or we can pass URL. We can only pass name or URL as a reference, so that it will identify that frame, and then we are normally locating the objects which are present inside that frame. So let's save this file and let's see our second approach is working or not. So this first one will not be skipped. So we have used test.skip. That's why this will not be executed, but this time it will be executed. Approach 2 will be executed. So now let me execute the test case by using approach 2. So let's execute our file now. So let's execute this file and let's see the second approach by using frame method is working or not. So for first frame, we have passed name as a reference. If you see, we have passed name, and then we are clicking on that search button. For second iframe, we have passing URL as a reference, and then we are clicking on the download link. So now it is starting the test execution. It will start the test execution. It will launch the web page. It is opening the URL. It should click on the search button of the first frame, which is clicked, and downloads in second iframe. If you see, that is correctly worked. So test case got passed, first one got skipped, and second one got passed. So this is how we can handle iframes and elements which are present inside the iframe. So we have seen the first approach by using frame locator, in which we can pass locator of that iframe. We can pass xpath or id or any locator. In second frame method approach, we have to pass either name or URL. So in this case, we have to pass only name or URL. And then we can locate the element which are present inside that iframe. And this is the example which we have seen by using both the frames, both the approach. So this is how we can work with iframes in Playwright. I hope you like this video. In next session, we will see how to handle nested iframes. Nested iframe means currently we have seen there is a parent page, and inside the parent page there are multiple iframes. But there can be a situation where inside this parent page there is an iframe, and inside that iframe also another iframe is present. Now that scenario we will see in our next session. So thank you for watching this video.